Do you have a friend who's going through a loss or a grief? They've buried a parent or a child or someone they love. Do you want to know exactly the right things to say and the wrong things to say so that you don't end up causing any more pain than they're already going through? My name is Wendy Keller, and today I'm going to give you the 10 things you must not say when you're trying to comfort someone who's suffering. The first of these is, I understand. Even if you think you understand, even if you've had a similar type of loss, you've also lost a parent or a child or a pet or a friend or a grandparent, you don't really understand. The nature of each relationship is completely unique. How you felt about your grandparent might be totally different than the way that that person felt about theirs. The circumstances of the death might have been different. You don't understand. People often say this in an attempt to be kind or to show allegiance or commonality, but it's not true, and it can fall as harsh and inconsiderate on the ears of a person who's grieving. The best thing to say in that situation is, "I'm so sorry for your loss," or "Is there anything I can do to help?" or "I love you, I'm here." Those are the 3 good things to say. The second bad thing to say, that you should never say when someone is suffering, no matter how well you know this person and no matter what you believe they believe, is things like, "He's with Jesus now," or "It was God's will," or "It's okay, God wanted him home." Especially in the case of someone who's lost a child, these are harsh things to hear because the subtext is, you shouldn't be grieving. You shouldn't be second-guessing divine will. You shouldn't be thinking it through in the way that you are in your small human mind. You should be looking at the great divine plan. The truth is, nobody really knows the great divine plan, and there isn't even 100% proof of what happens after we die. Anywhere. You only have belief and faith for whatever you believe and whatever that person might believe. And in fact, by imposing your perception of divine will on that person, not only do you snip short their grief experience, but you also enforce a faith that they may be questioning. You might think, well, that's important because I'll be able to give them an anchoring perspective. That is not the case. Instead, you will alienate yourself from the person and thus lose future influence. Don't say, "He's with Jesus now," or "God wanted him home," or "It's God's will," or "Allah's will," or anything else, because frankly, you don't know. Allow the person to question and grapple with their spirituality. There are some who would suggest that the times of greatest pain are when we move furthest from our dogma and closest to our truth. Allow that process to happen organically without embedding your theology on the person who's suffering. Next, the most important thing you cannot say is, "Well, he had a good life," or "Well, she had a good life." You don't know that. You don't know, except from your external perspective, if that person had a good life. And even if they did, how is that comforting to the survivor? In 99% of the cases, the survivor doesn't want that person to be dead, whether they've had a good life or not. They want them to be with them. It's important that you not say, "He's had a good life," as if that sufficed, as if that was enough time. Most people who are sick will spend thousands or millions of dollars, if they have it, trying to preserve their life by just the tiniest bit. Allow for the fact that you wouldn't like it if it was someone you cared about, no matter how good their life was. Next, and I see this so often in my work, people say, "Shh, it's okay, they're there." What is that? Grief is a natural part of the human experience. Every one of us will experience a grief situation if we live long enough. With someone we care about or something we care about will die or be gone. Always. Shushing someone or telling them they're there is never a good decision, because you know what? The tears that we cry when we are in emotional pain contain toxins. The body builds up in toxins when we're suffering. And when the tears flow, it's a cleansing process, a natural cleansing process designed by the human body to heal us. It's different than the tears that you get when you're chopping onions. It's a different and cleansing sort of tear. And also when you're expressing the emotions of loss and sorrow, pain, grief, anger, all the emotions that are part of the grief state, you're healing. You're going through it by shushing someone. There, shh. You're aborting their process and not allowing them to move through in a way that will create resilience, healing, wisdom, and maturity. The next thing so many people do is say, oh, be strong for your mother, or be strong for the kids. That is a bad burden to put on someone's shoulders. It's a terrible thing to say, be strong for someone else, because again, you're aborting the grief process. You might wonder how I've learned these things. Both my children died in a car accident in 1991. My son was 4 and my daughter was 18 months old. It was a horrendous, unspeakable, terrible experience of anguish. And I remember thousands, literally thousands of lovely people sending me cards and comforting me and bringing me casseroles and all these lovely things. And what I also remember are the people who told me these terrible things and made me feel guilty for the emotions I was feeling over the deaths of my children. Several people came up to me and said, well, you're young, you can have more kids. As if I could replace the unique individuals who had died in that car accident. When a parent dies, people say, well, you had her for a long time. How is that relevant? Show compassion. Don't tell your really long story of your own grief experience. Don't be like people were to me and say, I understand how you feel because you've buried your 2 children. Because I had a cat that died. Anybody who's a parent will tell you that a cat is not the same emotion as a child, especially not 2 of them. Don't imply a motive or a cause. People came up to my husband and I and said, well, you might have committed a secret sin, and this is God's way of getting your attention. Are you kidding me? People came up and implied motives. My motive, the driver's motive, the fact that the person driving the car in which I and the children were sitting didn't look both ways. That might be the cause, but that is not a motive. And that's not some divine cause. Don't imply that you know the motive or the cause. And if you think it was cancer and you don't know that it was cancer, don't say it was cancer. You only know what you know. I have a friend who for many years told me that her daughter broke her neck falling off a ladder trying to fix a light bulb, and it turned out 15 years later, she told me that her daughter had hung herself from the rafters in the garage and kicked the ladder aside. That's a different story. You don't know, you can't say. And also, you wouldn't believe how often this happens. Unconscious comforters say something negative about the deceased. Well, you know, this is what happens to drug addicts or alcoholics or people who take risks, or nobody figured he would even live this long. Be quiet. Don't say cruel things. That's so important. The next part is people say, are you still grieving? Now, you might not think this, but here's the way comforting works, particularly in modern cultures. When someone is suffering, everybody comes. They come to the funeral, they send flowers, they send cards, they remember to call. If you truly want to be a good comforter for your friend, the time to kick in is about 90 to 120 days after the loss has occurred. Why? Because that's when most people will be acting as if you should be getting on with it. That may or may not be true. It took me years to be able to function after my children died. I could go to the store, but I never was smiling. I never was happy. I never was laughter-filled. Take some time and look at your calendar and make a note to yourself that 120 days after the loss, you will contact your friend. And on the 1-year anniversary and the 6-month anniversary and maybe the 2-year anniversary or the birthday of the deceased person, you'll be the friend who remembers to send a card or make that precious phone call. If you want to be a great comforter, these are wonderful things you can do that will make such a dramatic difference in the way you reach out to your friend. This is the secret. Just be there. More than anything, saying, "I'm so sorry for your loss." Maybe, "I loved him too. I'm here if you need anything," and then be quiet and let the person who is grieving acutely tell you a story, even if they told it to you 20 times, about the funny time such and such happened. Let it wash over you. Be real. Sit in the pain with your friend, and you will be remembered forever as a great comforter. When my children died, my best friend, whose children were the same exact age, never spoke to me again. And a woman from my church whom I barely knew drove to the hospital where I was stuck for a very long time and sat by my bedside, pretty much saying nothing, just allowing me to tell her stories of my children over and over and over again. She's the one I remember as a great comforter. That can be you too. Open your heart, open your ears, and speak your truth and listen. You will be a great, beloved, and valued comfort to your friend. Thank you for watching. I'm Wendy Keller. My work is all about helping people who are suffering life's great tragedies and challenges. All the best to you and your friend. Goodbye.